Umeasiegbu Africa Manupaganyisu Kondolwayo Yizwa imithandazo yethu Nkosi sikelela thina.
Thank you very much, Rolf. Good evening again to everyone. My name is Taf, or Chaki, or Tafadzwa, or Tafadzwa Chakaodza, or anything. I am part of the amazing team of the Innovate For Africa 2012. I can personally say that this is an amazing, it's a dynamic, and it's an innovative project that we're trying to do, that we are doing in Africa. So let's start with what, potentially. I know word order is very interesting there, but let's start with what. So Innovate For Africa, in essence, is a business plan competition that has been thought out by a variety of students here in London, both undergrad, mostly postgrad, and then moving slowly into the undergrad level, where we've said Africa is an amazing continent. Africa is an emerging continent. The future, we believe, part of the future is in Africa. A big chunk of the future is in Africa. We're looking at a continent where 6% annual GDP combined. We're looking at a continent where it's the second largest continent in the world. We're looking at a place where there's a richness in terms of culture, as is every other continent. But particularly what's fascinating about Africa is that the potential for growth is amazing. The potential for harnessing what has been forgotten, what has been ignored over the past years is something that we want to look into. So the Innovate For Africa Business Plan Project 2012, starting off in Kenya, hence you see the shield of Kenya there. There's a business plan competition that we're trying to do in partnership with universities in Kenya to basically say, if you're a young person in Kenya, partner up with us, partner up with your university, you form a business plan. So for example, maybe you want to start a sewing company and you need maybe 10 machines, you need people, you need a factory, you need etc. You come with your friends in Kenya, you propose your business plan, the structures and guidelines are on our website or are currently being developed on our website, and you simply upload it to our website. We now here from a UK perspective, we are establishing a platform and a facilitative sort of aspect of mentors, where people like Julian Childs, people like a variety of people will be able to judge these business plans according to different various categories. For example, clean tech industries, maybe tourism industries, the specifics are all there on the, can be passed on to you in the literature. So basically you make a business plan, you submit it by the end of March, and then the actual event will happen in Kenya. So we're not just talking about something that we're doing here for fun and that will end in London, but we're talking about actually that international link between London and between Kenya. So what we're basically saying is, we are young people. Well, yeah, all of us are young people in here. We're young people, and we're trying to touch and empower other young people across Africa. We're not saying Africa needs us, we're not saying we need Africa, but we need each other. And I think that's a very, very important concept to grasp. We're not going there with our expertise, we're going there to learn. We're going there to learn from them, they're going to learn from us, and I think that synergy is going to create something that is amazing. So basically that is the what we're doing. The team here is working literally day in, day out, night and day. I can absolutely guarantee that, to make sure that we're forming those partners in Kenya, we're forming the networks in terms of mentors here in London and across Europe, and in turn across the globe. In South Africa, as you heard, in Kenya, in Zimbabwe, for example, and all the parts across the globe. As I said, the why, I think most of us here study international business, or some sort of business, being at Regent's College. And I think what motivates us is, particularly the core ethos of the college, is international business. But moreover, international business, but international partnerships and international synergies. So what we're trying to say is, what we know from here, what they know from there, let's bring it together. But for the development of Africa, particularly. Because Africa is emerging, and I think there's a great scope for us to be able to learn something, particularly starting in Kenya, and then in the long term, potentially moving this template across Africa. So potentially Angola, potentially Zimbabwe, potentially Egypt, and then potentially the world, who knows? Well, we know, we're just not there yet. And so this is basically what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it. It's very achievable. I think we're always taught in school about SMART goals. I personally believe this is a SMART goal. And if anyone can't see that, then you can meet me at the end. In terms of the who, you've seen the team, you've seen the network of mentors as well. As I said, this will touch the private and the public sector, because obviously when you deal with universities, some of them are public, some of them are private. So, and also coming to the when, so we said the business plans would be uploaded roughly until the end of March, starting around roughly late December. In terms of the just where we'll be, this will depend on the processes whereby we are in terms of the Kenyan university partners and ourselves, basically. So that's in terms of the when. And then the where, why we have started in Kenya is I think Kenya economically is one of the leaders of Africa. I think Kenya is, obviously we have links in Kenya as well, but we just thought we'd choose an African country that I think also inspires us to become entrepreneurs ourselves. We've seen a few case studies, which we will post on our website as well, in terms of what are people doing in Kenya. So we're not saying Kenya is the only country in Africa that's doing well, but we're saying let's start in Kenya, and then let's see where we go. In terms of the how, so basically, it's all about creating a platform for awareness of the entrepreneurship. It's all about partnering with us through the various initiatives that we're doing. For example, there's a fundraising aspect to obviously the organization. There's actually getting involved in terms of the task forces that we're setting up in London to be able to run the day-to-day marketing aspects, the fundraising aspects, the administrative aspects, and then there's the people in Kenya as well, where we're trying to establish, or we are in the process of establishing a task force, or task forces rather, across Kenya, that will be working in partnership with us to make sure this is fully and equally advertised and fully explored there as well as here. So we're here more to create awareness, to create that kickstart, and to say, let's see where this goes, but obviously within the limited time frames. So I think, in a short sort of overall aspect, Innovate for Africa is an amazing project that is going to make an impact. I can tell you now, with the vision that's there within the organization, I think this is going to outlive all of us, and that is the general hope. Obviously, this should go beyond all of us, so that we know we can truly make a difference, even though we weren't to be there. And I think one key element as well that we have, which you'll see later on in the event, is one of the key things that Africa needs right now is awareness in terms of the young entrepreneurial girl. We literally have done extensive research on the net, and we'll come to this a bit later on. There is not enough awareness of the young entrepreneurial girl in Africa. For example, we generally Googled young African entrepreneurs. We saw a 14-year-old boy who's doing amazing things, who you'll come see later on in the presentation. But there was nothing targeting your young girls. What is that 16-year-old girl doing in Kenya, potentially in Zimbabwe, potentially in Mozambique? So I think one of our key arms as well, or side arms, to Innovate for Africa, which is the business plan competition, is this aim to increase awareness of the female girl entrepreneur. Because everyone is doing the older generation, the men, the women, the young men, but no one is doing the young women. And we believe that this is a major, not niche market, but this is an opportunity that must be taken advantage of. So, in brief, that's Innovate for Africa. More literature is being developed as we speak. I think our Facebook website under the REBS, which is the Region Enterprise and Business Society, is currently available on the school intranet. More literature is being given off every day. Each and every one of the members are there to give you more info. But I think in general, that's what we're doing.
I work for a management consultancy that helps business think about sustainability. Now I've left Cadbury and did a bit of work at the Carbon Trust, and now work in a management consultancy. On the other hand, I'm a trustee for a charity called the One Foundation. It sells bottles of water and invests the money in parts of Africa. So there are parts of me that's an activist that was quite likely to show up in St. Paul's Cathedral. And there's parts of me that's not an activist, that is quite capitalist. So sometimes you see different expression of this person, and my journey is usually to find a reconciliation between those two. Sustainability is the closest I've come to that. So I'm both an advocate and a critic of capitalism as we know it today, yeah? But that's for another day. The brand of Africa is not one that you can think of an iconic image and say, that is Malawi. Yeah, that is, and yeah, which is why we're having a conversation about Africa, not about a particular country. Yeah, so people will say, even in popular culture, they say, yeah, from LA to Jamaica, from, and I'm quoting journalists now, LA to Jamaica, from Las Vegas to Africa. Yeah, sure. Very quick, but we'll work with it for a while. There is a serious point to it though, because if you're thinking, if I'm now putting on my capitalist hat, not the activist one, for a minute, when you think of places as an economic house, an economic powerhouse, it is probably sensible to think of Africa as one economic unit, not because its fiscal or monetary policies are run from one place, but because that's when it becomes tangible or substantial enough to be interesting to talk about as an opportunity. Yeah? But that could be also misleading. Some of the things I've found in conversations with people who think about Africa in this homogeneous way is that they get a very misleading picture of the continent. Obviously, it's at least 53 countries, and a new one was added recently, right? And it's within the 53 countries and Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have 200 different languages, 3 major ethnic groups, but vast cultures. We don't know, we don't understand this other culture. We never met them before the British showed up. So we actually met the British guy before we met the Yoruba guy across the river. And so, but what has emerged in the 100 years of integration that's happened, not independence, of integration of those different cultures, is that 2 types of Nigeria and many countries in Africa, at least 2 types have emerged. There is the urban Africa, and there is the rural Africa. And when you think about opportunities as innovators or investors or whatever, you ought to be thinking about it in that kind of detail. And of course, these are these two ends of a spectrum. There's all the shades in between. They're the semi-urban, they're the semi-rural, and so on and so forth. And whether you're looking at poverty alleviation, opportunities for investment, you ought to be thinking about it, because the realities in rural Africa is very different from the realities in urban Africa. And when we think about Africa, it is boring to go to Africa and bring pictures of skyscrapers. I mean, it doesn't sit with the image of a holiday in Africa. And I'm not saying you should bring pictures of skyscrapers. I'm just trying to describe your mindset. When you go somewhere, there's a narrative you expect it to fit. And if it doesn't fit that narrative, you disregard it. Yeah? If there's no war in Africa, it doesn't show up in the news very easily, you know. So there has to be something that fits the narrative we expect. So to tell the story that, you know, since the 70s, there have been fewer and fewer conflicts in Africa, it's just so boring, and you can't tell that story in 3 minutes. You have to set a context. You can only tell it by writing a book or doing a documentary. Nobody will watch it, right? So in the 3 minutes you have to fit the narrative that everybody expects. Now, for someone who's thinking about investing for opportunities, there are opportunities in that. Because just like Katrina blew open a lid of a class of Americans that people don't see in the news, there is also a class of Africans who could be economically active, who nobody's reporting in the news, and therefore no investor is thinking is an opportunity to go and invest in.
What is my purpose here? And obviously we have thought about this because you have not just sat down and been passive spectators. The idea is that you guys will get involved. And thinking about these guys who go around with these 8 boxes, and you can give money to Africa, is the model that we want to get away from. Now, IFA is basically this box, but instead of putting money into it, you put human resources into it. And instead of going through media and getting the view of Africa distorted, what IFA is the channel, a two-way channel, where what we need is people, human resources fed into one end and the other end, and to meet in the middle.
See